If I had to like guess, I would say Jeremy Fox's books probably do pretty well. I think Samin's book probably does really well, but I don't know if that's for chefs. For chefs, I don't think that's certainly not one. So for chefs, I don't really know. They probably still use the.
Be a good question for Evan Sung. He probably has a good answer.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll know like what the impact for. Yeah, actually, he would. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, we'll ask him.
Absolutely.
That's a good.
At least which ones are selling and being circulated amongst the cool kids.
That's true.
He's met his finger on that pulse more than anybody I know.
Yeah, I bet the
he eats out more than all three of us combined.
Yes, he does. He is a professional eater-outer. Context.
I love
context. See?
That you just dropped that.
He eats out so well, and I've never met anybody that eats out as well as him. He's a good eater-outer.
And quantity.
He's a great eater-outer, really.
So much.
And he just continues to eat out.
Yeah.
He eats out in like all over the place. He doesn't care where it is.
All over the world.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He'll eat out anywhere. Yeah. And that's what I appreciate about him mostly.
Me too.
Context.
Context.
See, this is what I mean. Let me ask you a question. Maybe just kicking this off before I'm going to put you into a rant, Conway. If people read our group texts or individual texts, is there anything that they would think differently of me or you or
me?
Yeah, any.
I think my public statements and image very much reflect the same thing that would happen in a private text conversation.
I would agree with that for the most part.
I think many people might be nervous to expose all of their texts to the world, and I think I would probably fall into that category. But as a general rule, I think most of my texts fall right in line with the same old guy that you see face to face, whether in person or on a podcast.
I think it's a diplomatic answer.
I think my humor would not be understood by everyone without context, and there's not often context. Sure. And I'm pretty sure that I would get canceled. But I don't think that it's bad, but
everybody has life goals, Sharky. Everybody has life goals. Sounds like yours is to get canceled. We can make this happen for you.
I just, the context is everything, really. Sure. Any joke out of context just doesn't land the same. I think Jacoby, I think the same. You get canceled too.
Yeah, but I think most comedians would say the litmus test of any joke, whether in context or not, is whether it's funny. If people laugh, you can get away with anything. If people don't laugh, you're fucked.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
Well, this is a run through. This is live. We are going to record this, and we already are, and this is going to go on air, and everybody will hear this. But we're going to do a practice run. Everything Life's practice. That's a new format because I wanted to do something different with the show, and I've been talking about it for a while. And I just want to have more people on, people that everybody that comes on I respect, but like hopefully where we can have some good discussions, but also disagree. And when we disagree, that we disagree pretty hard. But in general, just try something different. So today, the impetus for this specific one, because I've been trying this for a while, is Matt, you brought something up that you wanted to talk about. So we'll start with that, but I have a bunch of things that we can go into. We're going to kind of go in a bunch of random different directions. And not going to bother with like introductions of you guys because nobody cares about any of us, but we could talk about that, afterwards and post about it. But Matt, you said that there's something that is like one of the most under-discussed aspects of today's hospitality world about social media and how it's changing dining. So just start us off, rant, tell me what you were saying, but get into some more detail.
Yeah, sure. I think, today's world's changed a lot, period, obviously, but within the hospitality community, whether you're a line cook all the way up to a multi-unit restaurant owner, people talk about all types of shit of why the world's changing, why people are drinking less, why cooks don't have the fine skills anymore. Why? There's all these reasons why. And the end result is because I think personally, fine dining, whatever that is, I don't mean white tablecloth. I mean dining that gets awarded by the publications and entities, whether it be Beards or Michelins or whatever. Those restaurants don't all have tablecloths anymore, but all of those experiences, I think people who have a long tenured experience of dining out at great restaurants, it's never been worse. And you watch every year people get up and pat each other on the back, and it always looks a little cliquey, and it always has been. And those situations just kind of seem super disingenuous because everybody on the stage, everybody that's loving on each other knows that what they're producing today probably doesn't hold a candle to what was happening 10 years ago. And in between,
What do you mean by that? When you said like it's not,
I think
not
today's
that good.
great dining experience is a lesser experience than it was 5, 10, 15 years ago, from a quality of service, the types of things that go into the details that make a great experience. And again, I don't believe you have to have white tablecloths or the old traditional mindset to be a great restaurant, but I think there's certain things that we all agree on. If your server comes up chewing gum and it isn't kept well, that's probably not somebody you want at a fine dining restaurant. And again, I use that for lack of a better term, but people are like, oh yeah, this person's the best, this person's the best. And you get so excited and you go to the restaurant and then you see sloppy service, gross food handling, things that would never be acceptable. I went to a highly regarded restaurant recently in New York that gets on all of these crazy lists for whatever. And it's in this very quiet, you forget that you're in New York City. It's amazing. They create this environment and you have to take an early or a late reservation because that's all they have available for you. And as soon as we like sat down and got settled in, the back door kicked open to a major thoroughfare in Manhattan with taxi cabs honking. And the guy was bringing in a full pack dolly full of vegetables falling off. All the kitchen guys started swearing at the guy. And this was a 2 Michelin star restaurant that people wait months in advance to get into. And I just don't think you would see that 10 years ago. And I don't think you see it at a restaurant that's been around like Le Bernardin or whoever else gets on those lists forever. But the thing that everybody wants to talk about, some people told me when I explained that experience, oh, that's the cool factor these days. Like that's them not trying to like be too like, that's them being loose with everything. And everybody can have an excuse for all that. But when we get to the bottom line, people dine out differently than they ever have. And my opinion, and I'll die on this hill, is that through social media, there used to be an experimental factor of dining out, cocktails, wine, the chef, the quality of the food. Now, my wife and Sharky and his wife could all agree to go out to dinner on a Friday night 2 weeks in advance at a restaurant where we were excited to experience the chef 15 years ago. And then the first thing we would do when we sit down is catch up because we haven't seen each other in a while. There'd be an excitement to see each other. And then we would have anticipation for what the wine list was going to look like, what the cocktail program might feel, maybe even what the room looks like, as well as like the service. And then you like get into some of the most celebrated chefs of our culture. And it's like, you're excited to experience what they're putting on a plate. In today's world, those people have DM'd each other 200 times that day about what their life is like. So when you meet them, the anticipation of meeting your guests is now completely different. And then the restaurant that you're going to has posted every cocktail, every picture of the room, introduced you to their service staff. The chef's every whimsical dish has been shown over and over and oftentimes put on reels and highlighted. And it's like, so you get there and it's like, you don't have any interest in what your guests have done for the past weeks or months since you've seen them because you're constantly texting or DMing each other. You've seen everything the restaurant has to offer on whatever. And how can you keep the world of dining exciting and have people want to go out and spend a lot of money on these experiences when, frankly, from New York to Tokyo, they've seen every dish that any chef that they care about has ever put out. And I think that is something we don't talk about enough, and how that lack of excitement, people get more love from likes or comments or things on their social media than they do by going out and experiencing a great dish that they've never seen before. So the excitement has transferred from the actual experience to capturing the experience. And at that same restaurant, I'll finish here, where the door kicked open in the back and like you're waited forever for the 5:15 reservation, we had a 3-top, it's counter service only, sitting next to us. And she videotaped on a little tiny video camera the food going into her mouth, each bite. And we were in the background of all of this. And she, for the entire 3-hour experience, she filmed everything. And I eventually called the sommelier over and said, I don't really care, but like, if I were famous, would you allow them to photograph me this entire time? Like, shouldn't there be some level of safety here for you to approach the guest and say, this isn't the place for that? And he kind of chuckled and said, yeah, well, if you want to complain, we'll go say something. As, oh, no, let her live her wildest dreams. But now we can't even eat a meal without being like, look, it's going into my mouth. And that person then posted a reel about everything, including what the inside of the roof of her mouth looks like. So when we're going to discuss the evolving nature of our industry, how we get that excitement back, will we ever get that excitement back? Do we care about getting that excitement back? I think those are things that need to be a part of the discussion versus just patting each other on the back when somebody wins an award for service and standards that are subpar, in my opinion.
Okay. I have a bunch of questions, but I want to hear.
I do too. Yeah,
I want to hear Jacober as well, but I will say one thing before this is sort of an aside, but like,
first of all, do you agree or disagree?
Well, I agree with a lot of it, but I think that there's also, I think there are a lot of restaurants that are doing great things. I think that, and also just businesses that are trying to do really great things. I had Kim on from Goop Kitchen last week, and she's like, she has an incredible pedigree, and she's like totally rethinking how to have an amazing experience with that type of world. And I think there are people clearly doing in the restaurant space. But I want to talk about that. But I will say, I get yelled at whenever I go out for not taking the picture of the thing before we eat it. And I was eating with you at Tatiana with Evan, and like the famous dishes came out, and I just went to eat it because that's what I want to do is eat it. And I got yelled at, like, yes. Hey man, that's his most famous thing. You got to stop and let pictures get taken. So I'll be honest, like it is all encompassing, and I agree, but there's like then this pressure, right, of like, because I don't want to wait. I don't want to take a picture. I just want to eat the thing while it's still like at its perfect, thing. And
the way it was designed,
that happened with us, right? With all of us there. So it is like it's endemic. But Mike, what do you think?
Well, the first question I ask is, who has never said that, right? Like, I feel like that conversation, and I'm being a little bit provocative here. Every generation has said that about the previous generation. Yeah. Oh, it's just not like it used to be. It's just not, they don't care as much as they did. Like, you ask any chef, like the chefs that I worked for said the same shit. And I'm sure the chefs that they worked for said the same shit. I think there's like just a cultural thing that just inevitably comes out as each generation puts their stamp on something. But you also, if you look at like kind of the macro in terms of that concept specifically, where like things are getting diluted, there's just more restaurants, right? Like when we were coming up, I don't know, when I was coming up, there was like, 5 really good Michelin starred restaurants that you could work at. And it was really competitive to work at those restaurants. Today, if you're starting out, you're working at someone's restaurant who learned from one of those guys. And there's hundreds, if not thousands of those guys out there. So there's just so many more restaurants to work at. And it's next to impossible to sort of maintain those, those same levels and those same standards when you just have, I don't know, I would say like a dilution of high quality restaurants that you can go and cut your teeth at. So it's just this like seemingly inevitable cycle where over time, the level of skill is just going to continue to deteriorate.
Sure, but before we get to the level of skill, my point, and first of all, to address Sharky, I'm not claiming there aren't great restaurants or people doing great work. And that was not what I was saying. What I was saying is, I think the same caliber of restaurant today at whatever level they're at was operated at a higher level not that long ago. And you're talking about skill sets or working somewhere. We can get to that because I know it's something Sharky actually cares a lot about as far as, how a cook owns their skills or sommelier or whoever. I'm just talking about information.
Yeah.
And how much more access we have to know what we're getting ourselves into, which used to be the centerpiece of dining from your guests, what you're about to eat and drink and experience. Like, the difference between what wine you had this Friday and last Friday used to be exciting to people. And now they're way more excited about, at least in my experience, a lot of superficial things that have nothing to do with their exact experience. And while we can talk about how things have changed with the number of restaurants and how hard people work to climb the ladder and how many great restaurants actually do exist, even if you're at those places, you have an expectation of what's going to go on. Sharky's example of Tatiana, which I think is a great one. He basically tried to drag me in the hole of me accusing other people of behaving ways that I did myself. My wife wanted to go to a restaurant that was really hard to get into in New York City. And we flew all the way up there for one dinner. And on his chef's table, there's a whole, montage of his photos. And one of them is his piri piri dish, which is his most famous, colorful dish. She flew all the way from New York. I'd rather chop Sharky's fucking hand off than not let my wife get a photo of what we literally flew up there and worked so hard.
Okay, well that's fair. I actually forgot about that.
And
but I get yelled at it for all the time. That's a unique thing, but I get yelled at it.
That makes me part of the problem, and I'm not saying that I'm not, or that
I think that's a unique situation. But
it is a unique situation. But even in my restaurant in Charleston, we share more of our food photos and what wines and things you're going to expect. And my wife and I talked a lot before we opened how much I would love to not do that, or say you can't even take photographs or post photographs of what gets served here. But now it's part of the expectation of society. Even if you minimally share, if you don't share anything, it's really hard to exist because people expect it. How many times you go out with people or, your significant others or good friends, and they look at the menu days or weeks before you even go to the restaurant? Like, that's so common to me, where people are like, oh, yeah. I looked at the menu, and it's like, fuck, why are we even going to the restaurant if you already know what everything's on the menu? Like, it seems like it's taking the fun out of dining out. And at that point, you might as well just lower your standards to, let's just go to the local place that does a pretty good job, but doesn't do as well as the people who really go crazy. And I have a beverage director friend that runs $100 million multi-unit restaurant group in New York. And he said their biggest problem is competing with, somebody who lives in Fort Greene used to have to come to Manhattan and go to that fancy restaurant and pay that extra 30% premium to get a great meal. And now they can get one delivered to their house, probably from the same restaurant, or there's a comparable restaurant that's a little less expensive that's close by, and they don't really care that much about that gray area of difference. And so it's diluting the people who actually have to work their ass off to be that 30% better, to be the greats of our industry. And so there's less of them. And it's a big part to do with information to me.
I agree. I also think, look, I think the market drives behavior, and what is important today for the younger people dining is maybe not as the same things that were important to us when we were dining more. I don't get to go out as much, So the things that are important to them are just different, and restaurants are, addressing that.
Sure.
I think there is in aggregate way more good food now because there's this trickle down of, there was only X number of restaurants in the late 90s, 2000s. All those great chefs produce more chefs. All those great chefs produce more chefs. And now you have this, diaspora of like from the cities into everywhere of great food. So there's just more good food. So which means that you don't have to be as differentiated because if you're in the neighborhood and you're good, then, it's good enough. But also I do think people, go out for different reasons now. We didn't have the kind of social media that there is now. So the experience was, that was all we had was go to that place because that's where I'd see you. I wouldn't see you otherwise.
Sure.
Now for them, it might just be, and I don't know, I'm actually speculating because I don't fucking know. It might just be they're like, I'm next to you at the restaurant. I haven't seen you in like 2 months. We've only been on, social media. And so like, that's all I care about. I don't care about the thing, the door. I just want to be able to take my pictures and hang out with my friend. I don't know. Maybe it's just that there's just other things that are important to people. Because I don't know if necessarily the food is definitely in aggregate better at most places. And the wine too.
I'd vehemently disagree with that. I think that I think finding a good place to eat dinner in New York, in any borough, except for at the very low level, dollar-wise, the inexpensive version of restaurants, anything past whatever the New York Times would call under 20, which is probably under 80 now. I read the New York Times. those restaurants, there's a plethora of them. To your point, there's a lot of good food, but good quality dining experiences are harder to find in New York than ever.
I'm talking specifically about food. Like, and I mean more,
Sure.
there's more cities now that have enough good options of food that they didn't have that 20 years ago.
I agree
you
with
know?
that. And the low level definitely counts because there's more options, more availability of different types of cuisine than there ever have on every block, even outside of New York. There's truth to that. I guess what I'm trying to equate, and we can probably move on, which I think is a good analogy that just popped in my head, is like dating. Obviously, I think we're all long past that part of our lives, but like I have employees that are all in that age of looking for love, and nobody meets each other in person anymore. So the idea,
what does that mean? What do you mean? I don't know. What is that? Like, how do they do it?
People go online on apps and they swipe and they meet through technology, and then they meet up on these cold dates with people that they've never had. A lot of people do it at my wine bar and have their first dates because they know it's a cozy, comfortable, safe place to meet a stranger. Whereas, and I know a lot of people who met their significant others on dating apps. Like I'm 43. It's not like I didn't live through that era. Fortunately, I didn't really have to do that just because I think it's easier to meet people in person. And I think a lot of people disagree, but like dating 10, 15 years ago, you might actually have to go sit at a bar and hope that the guy or gal next to you strikes up some conversation. And now you can sit on your couch and just swipe. It's changed the face of human interaction. And if it's happening on the dating level, it's definitely happening on the hospitality level. But you go to a conference, you talk to the experts in the field, you talk to the chefs. Not really something most people are talking about, at least publicly. I do hear a bit of it behind closed doors, especially from those big companies with big ambitions that are like, we're losing, especially in New York, we're losing the lunch diner. We're losing this whole demographic. These people are aging out. The younger generation doesn't drink or care about wine. Like all these things are eating at our ability to fill seats. And we used to be worried about margins. When I left New York City in 2020, everybody was talking about how margins were shrinking because of fuel surcharges and all of these other things was making it possible to sustain as a restaurateur. And now people are talking about fuck margins. They just need butts in the seats and then they can worry about margins. And I think that change has a lot to do with the ability to get food delivered to your door, not care about it having to be Andrew Carmelini. You can probably get something close to your house that is pretty good, close enough.
But let me ask you a question, because you've talked about, you mentioned, New York City and there being what seems to be a dilution of quality in New York City. If you zoom out and you kind of think about, if you wanted to be a great cook, you had to come to a major metro, right? You had to come to LA or New York or Paris. Like there were literally only places you could go to learn to cook for the greats. My question is like, is what's happened better for, the dining landscape nationally? Because what you have is people not needing to go to New York now to learn to be, quote unquote good, because you have people who have learned from the city. They've left the city, right? They've opened great restaurants outside of New York. Josh, we were in, what was it, Minneapolis this year at having like some pretty exceptional dining experiences. Like I wouldn't put Minneapolis on my radar 20 years ago to go have a great dining experience. But, there's just so many more cities now where really good cooks / chefs have now opened up restaurants. So the question is like, maybe it's not what's best for New York, but has just the level risen? Has there been dilution in New York, but has it been given to other cities throughout the country in exchange for that? And is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? I don't know the answer.
I agree with your assessment that there's better dining options nationally than there was, let's say, pre-pandemic, because a lot of those people moved and took their skills there. But I think people have forgotten a lot of the service standards. I went to Minneapolis the end of this summer for my niece's college tour, and we ate at restaurants that were highly regarded that had half of their menu not available on a Saturday lunch. And they apologized and said, sorry, it's because we had a busy Friday night. I think if you're a beard award
sure, yeah.
on everybody's short list, you should probably have better ordering practices, knowing that you're going to do 100 covers, because it was very hard to get into that restaurant. And overall, I didn't particularly think the restaurant scene in Minneapolis was that intriguing, but a lot of that was more the whole experience than the food. And I find over the past couple of years, I joke about it with my wife all the time, but it's not a joke. We regularly go out, order food and drinks, but usually drinks first, and hot food hits the table before our drinks. It happened last night here in Charleston. We ordered hot food and gin and tonics, two-bit drinks in a line, and the food hit the table before the gin and tonic did. I think that's my point. That matters. You don't want to sit there and stare at your food without a glass of wine. And if the system's so broken, great. The chef did their time in a big city and moved to a small city, but many of them don't care about the wine list. They don't care about wine service. They don't care about a good cocktail program. And I'm not saying nobody does, but it's commonplace for us to go to restaurants that are highly regarded, at least in their own town, and have service experience that are like, what the fuck are we doing here? Well, why are there pan roasted oysters on the table before a gin and tonic? Like, even if the bar was backed up, you think that you could manage that scenario. So we waited 5 more minutes for the drink to hit our table before the food got fired. That was not unquestionable or hard to do 5 or 10 years ago, but now it seems like nobody even gives a shit.
Do you think they know that that's supposed to happen?
I let them know.
No, but do you think before you let them know that they actually know that, there's a lot of these things that maybe we just knew because we had to do it. And also, to be fair, because you think about it and you care and you want to, and every little detail matters. But I'm curious if they didn't even know, they didn't even know that was a thing.
That could be a knowledge gap in terms of steps of service. Yeah.
Sure. And, it's a guiding principle of all of my mentorship and training over my career. Always treat the guest how you would want to be treated, or you would treat your mother. And at the end of the day, if I traded places, you'd want your drink before your hot food. Like, if that has to be taught, which it does, I'm not denying that, but it's a crazy place we're in, because it seems that some levels of hospitality are instinctual, right? The 51%ers that Danny Meyer chased just know that you should probably get your drink before your food because that's what they would want. And again, that connective feeling seems to be fleeting. And there are some people that do very good jobs, but you didn't bring me on here to talk about the people who are doing great work. We're talking about what's some of the bigger problems in the industry are. And I think Mike brings up some good points about, what are the questions here of intentionality and how many chefs are going here versus there. Like, that all matters. New York isn't the whole country. But I think the whole experience is as vulnerable, and I think that's a good word to use, as vulnerable as it's ever been, of collapsing. What is high-end dining anymore? When you see some of the awards given, we had this conversation with Daniel Eddy, came down here for a chef event, who has won a Michelin star and worked at Michelin star restaurants. And we were having a conversation. Do you think a Michelin star in Paris should be the same equivalent as a Michelin star in New York as it should be in Charleston? They just got released here. And everybody's unanimous answer was, no, of course not. And I'm like, well, whoa. Everybody else is in on the idea that 1 star from the Michelin Guide should be viewed different from market to market. That seems a little wild to me. And they were like, well, you can't compare Charleston to Paris. And I'm like, they're both 1
Michelin Guide does. Yeah.
Like, we ate at Septime last month, and we eat at Michelin starred restaurants in Charleston all the time, the ones that won. And I'm not going to sit here and say who's better or worse, but they're definitely different experiences dramatically. And I think the idea that, in the US, everybody shrugged their shoulders and said, why would we compare ourselves to them? It's like, shouldn't we be comparing? If everybody's consensus is that the Parisian 1 star is better than the US 1 star, shouldn't we be aspiring to make that equal?
Is Michelin, what's your thoughts on Michelin as the importance of it in the industry today?
Most chefs value that over most of the other accolades. And I think being able to call yourself a Michelin starred chef has and will, for the foreseeable future, be important to those who work 70-hour weeks and do the hard work to try to get that recognition. And I think that type of recognition is important to keep people driving hard so that there's hopefully a trophy at the end of a partial career or whatever to get the accolades that you think you deserve. But as far as like putting butts in seats or what it really means quality wise, I'm less convinced about that. But I think that it's definitely a highly coveted chef's thing. And I think it's good for our industry to have something meaningful like that for chefs to chase and inspire their teams to chase. Do I think it's political, as all awards are? To some level, I think it has to be. I don't really care about that though, because that's life. But I think it's good for chefs to have something to chase. That's my personal opinion.
I think that's a good perspective, that every award, no matter what, everywhere is somewhat political. My concern with it is not the good parts, because there's a lot of good parts about it. It's extrinsic. No matter what, it's like it's an extrinsic reward. It's not like, you could know you're crushing it.
Yeah.
And you could be in like Tulsa, and you're just crushing it and not get anything. But if is it more important that you're doing the best and that like you're crushing this thing, or that you got a Michelin star? And that to me is a bit of a disparity, and that it's not that it's arbitrary by any means, but it can be somewhat random. Whereas there could be a restaurant that is better than the 2 Michelin star in New York, and it's in a place that like is not very common, and they probably just won't get it. And they might not get anything, by the way.
Sure.
This is a global world. This is not like, it's not just New York, LA, Chicago anymore. So that part, is like, what? So just leave where you are. So, which means then that if it's that important, then those places just won't have the same caliber of restaurants. And that means that the person that really cares about their craft will need to leave to do that. That's where I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's hard for me to reconcile that. But you make a good point that every award, no matter what, is political. So it's
impossible to take that out of anything, and it's not just food and hospitality in the Grammys or Oscars. Whatever it is, there's always going to be that nature of it. But like here in Charleston, they just released the guide here for the first time this November, and everybody that eats out a lot and is involved in the community, there was some general consensus about who actually very much deserves some. And when the stars came out, there was a lot of surprise that a couple restaurants that weren't on everybody's list were recognized, and some that were on everybody's list weren't. But I think the most glaring example that's genuinely consensus among everybody's opinion
Chubby Fish.
Well, no brainer that it's crazy that Chubby Fish did not receive a star. Yes. But I think people would argue that they have a line, and I'm the biggest Chubby Fish supporter on the planet Earth. I think they deserved it 100 times over. My opinion doesn't matter. But what I think the consensus everybody agreed on, Vern's and Chubby Fish were the most likely to be on everybody's list, and Vern's deservingly, very much so, got a star and is a restaurant I would strongly stand behind receiving one. Mike Latta from Fig, who's been here for 20 years, and Fig walked so Vern's can run. It's and Fig still is excelling with excellence after 20 years, which is even harder to do than for a short period of time. And he literally put Charleston on his back and is still in the restaurant on a regular basis, and still has the same leadership team for over a decade, front and back of the house. I mean, the dude's doing the work today, and I think it's almost harder to do it for 20 years or years 10 through 20 than it is 1 through 5. And the fact that Mike Latta and Fig was recommended and not starred, I think everybody agrees, while Vern's is 1,000,000% deserving, and everybody was stoked for that. But it's like, how could you recognize Vern's and not Fig? They're similar farm to table type, New American, everything made in house. It's like, they're kind of they're far from different when you eat at them, but similar ethos. And I think that is, to your point, Sharky, a little confusing to people. Like, how is that possible? Is this even a real award? Did somebody piss somebody off? Like, what how could Fig be left off of that? And again, I like Fig, but it's not that I have any skin in the game for that restaurant or that restaurant group.
Yeah.
It is a unbiased observer from the outside is like, wait, that doesn't add up.
There's like a contradiction, or it's a conundrum, because you want it to not matter in that regard, because Fig is awesome. Fig is an incredible restaurant, and to have that durability over 20 years and to have that quality over 20 is just incredible. So you want it to not matter, the Michelin star, because it shouldn't in that regard. But then if you have one, you want it to matter. So there's this it's really it is a bit of a conundrum, because if you're not in the city where there is Michelin, then it doesn't matter to you.
Sure.
But if you are, it matters deeply. But that I just feel like the things need to be far more intrinsic, or at least your opinion should matter, and it doesn't, right? Your opinion doesn't matter for Fig. So maybe there's just a better way to do it. I think you need some sort of indicator that a thing is good. There's too many places, so you have to have something that says go here or not here. And Yelp isn't the thing to do that. So what is? And again, Michelin can't be, because it's only in certain places.
To your point about Chubby, it's like they have every award. They might be had the best run of any restaurant this year you could possibly have. So they're not lacking attention, but you would then ask yourself, why not the Michelin star, right?
Why not the one that really?
But I mean, a lot of people are like, is it because they don't take reservations? Is it because they don't have a full bar? Like, what's the excuse? Because there's got to be a catch here. And I think a lot of people feel that making the Michelin reviewers wait in the line because they can't cut the line and expose themselves is why
that was enough. Yeah.
I don't know why they did. I'll tell you right now, like if you eat out in this town, Fig and Chubby are definitely wildly deserving when you compare the consistency of those meals. And I eat out at those places frequently. They're both pretty close to my house that I'm sitting in now, but people start to question, how is it possible? But to Sharky's point, there's got to be something that says that it's good. And I think Chubby's done pretty damn well proving to the world that they're a very good restaurant without the Michelin star. But I don't know. I haven't spoken to him about it, but I would guess that James would give up a lot of that to have the Michelin star, which is how we opened with this. I think a chef would be willing to not be on this list or that list or have this recognition and rather have the Michelin star. At least that's my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, which is true. And I just wish there was something that was more, democratic might be the wrong word, but just more available to everyone and more easy to understand how and why.
Wow, we agreed. This is crazy. Shut it down.
Wow, we actually did. That's
Sharky and Matthew agreed for the first time in 20 years of friendship. It's over.
No, we agreed more when I was able to drink wine. So maybe now that I'm able to drink wine again, I think we'll agree more. I think we agreed on
what happened recently.
Oh, you didn't hear?
No.
Yeah, I can drink wine again.
Why? What changed?
I have no idea whatsoever. It just one day I was like, I don't know, something feels different. I'm going to take a sip, and I took a sip, and I was okay. And then I immediately, because if I took a sip, I would my eyes would get blurry. I would get really tired, and away, like literally immediately, like a sip, and that didn't happen. So I drank a little bit more, and then I had a whole glass, and I was like, okay. So I tried it again, and so now now I'm going a little bit a little crazy. I need to dial it back.
Yeah, you're making up for lost time, bro.
You're making up for lost time, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't drink sherry for 15 years, and that
must have been an amazing revelation.
Well, I still need to now get some. I had all these Almastanisas that I had to give away, and so now I did get some more. But I'm it's great. I had a Nebbiolo last night, and
welcome back, baby.
It's amazing. But what's interesting is now I can't drink a lot. I can only after 2 glasses. That's probably enough. But I don't drink that much anyways.
Yeah.
But I only want to drink really, really, really good wine. So I need another round, Matt.
I can make that happen. So a question I'll have for you both after that intro or my feelings about that. How would you think we could possibly, moving away from accolades and that stuff, how could we actually bring some excitement back to the dining table? How could we actually, are there any steps that you can think of that we could work together as a hospitality community nationally to get people excited to come back to the dinner table? Not because there's a promo or because there was a TikTok reel, but because they're actually excited to be dining at that restaurant. And it's not because it was hard to get there, because they actually are excited about what might happen in front of them, what might be served to them. Is that possible?
I have two parts. So one part where I think there is something that could help, and then maybe something that maybe is a little bit pessimistic. Because I don't necessarily think that the level of execution and all the things dialed in the right way is going to, en masse, have a big change. I think the restaurants that do that, right away, it's incredible. It's helpful. They love it as much as you love it. It's a lot of work to do. But I think that, and I hate to sound like some old, people are just way more entrenched with social media and being on the phone and looking at things, and there's way less community. I think the way that you get more people is to try to figure out ways to have, multiple, like a community coming to your restaurant. So it's not like, hey, you two that are married come, but hey, you group of people, we have something that you can, that you can convene around that's really interesting, and you're going to have an incredible experience. Because I don't know if people do that as much anymore. I don't know if that happens as much. I mean, it's been slowly over like 25. I mean, we used to just go to the mall and meet you there. And there was no like, when we get there was no like, I'll be there in 20 minutes. It was just, we got dropped off at the mall and then we hung out. And that was a long time ago. And then it was, things slowly over the last 25 years, that has been degrading and degrading. We're like, I don't know if people, I don't know how often that happens at all. So like, I think it's got to be some sort of a community-based incentive to get there, where you meet like the people that you already know, or people that like you want to know. I don't know if the incredible experience that you're going to have is something that is, there's going to be enough to sustain that everybody wants to go do that more.
It's hard for me to kind of speak for a huge group of people. So I try to think about, what are the most meaningful experiences that I have and have had, and what gets me excited about going out. And I think other people can probably relate to, as someone who's been around food for so many years, it's really about like, and I'm going to use the word exotic, an exotic experience, which is basically something that like I can't very comfortably replicate within my home, or can comfortably replicate or have someone else comfortably replicate and me experience that dining. So like, we think about, French, Italian, just these cuisines that we're so accustomed to enjoying for a very long time. When I compare, those experiences to, sitting at the bar at Shuko, like I can never produce that level of excellence, and just that, like that, I never trained to do that. And so that experience to me is just so special because it's so exotic. So that's like definitely one area. I would say the other area that gets me excited is what Josh just said. It's just about who I'm dining with and the experience that I'm having dining with that group. And group dining to me has been, I think, some of the best dining experience I had this year was, I was in Italy. The first time I ever went to Italy, which I still can't believe was this year, at a restaurant called Davitorio. And it was this lunch at Davitorio that it was equal parts, food and wine that I never would be able to replicate on my own, but more so just the people that I was enjoying it with. Like, you can't replicate that. And so I think, yeah, just having, and I don't know how you bottle that. I don't know how you market that and create that as a restaurant. Like, this is going to be the restaurant that you have a really meaningful group experience.
That's so, I have an idea for the rest. Like, I'm in this group called Hampton. I think I've told you about. It's like a CEO group. And my group is incredible. Like they're just so smart, and learn so much from them. And we meet every, once a month on a call, but then we also like, we'll go to Jackson Hole or somewhere and just like hang together. Yeah. And then Hampton has this now local thing where you can do a group locally where you can, because they're all around the country. And man, what was the restaurant where you actually facilitated those groups of people that were like you and scheduled those dinners? Like, you're going to be once a month here, and then another like, interim thing throughout the month. and you actually like schedule all of those group dinners for all these disparate types of groups.
Yeah.
CEOs, it could be chefs, it could be wine people, it could be, and you actually like you take care of the entire thing and facilitate like, comms outside of that. I think that can work.
That could be a business.
But I do agree with you that every generation says about the last generation, oh, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's like a tale as old as time.
I mean, that's like
whatever. No, I'm not. And Sharky and I have had this conversation on a podcast and privately before about, like you got to get over whatever. And you can sit back and think about the things in our lifetimes or careers. Like, I'm not a chef, but I remember chefs of Sharky's generation talking about, I think it's Marco Piero White's cookbook that came out, and like it got cooks like foaming at the mouth to like work 80-hour work weeks because that book just transformed fine dining and the way people think about that. Like, what is that today? But more importantly than that, as a non-chef, and I can leave that to the chef question. It's like you're talking about this excitement and these things like this exotic nature. One of my favorite restaurants to go to in New York City, which I said is the hardest place for me to choose a restaurant, and I obviously am up there a lot, frequent the city, and when I'm there, I'm usually eating out.
Hold on, just to the side, my wife said to me, dude, what the fuck? Why doesn't Matt text you when he goes to the city? Because she sees on Instagram that you're there. She's like, did you know Matt's in the city? I'm like, no, I didn't know that. Oh, interesting. Just letting you know.
You live in Yonkers or West?
I live in Westchester. It's a quick train ride. I mean, the easy thing to do is tell me, knowing that I won't be able to make it. So that I'm the one that has to say no.
You can tell me no. That'll feel much better for everybody. But when I think about places to go, one of the places that I truly get excited to go, and this is just absolute honesty, Red Hook Tavern. And there's nothing exotic about that restaurant at all. It's hard to get into, but the wine list, the cocktail program, the Amaris at the end, the service, man, they treat me like I'm a king every time I'm there. And like, I know Billy the chef, but I usually don't tell him I'm going in because I'm not that guy. And like, if once he finds out I'm there, he's like, yo, asshole, why didn't you tell me you were there? And it's like, your team treats me like $1 million when they don't know I'm your homie. That's all that matters to me. And going into a place that has delicious food, nothing about the menu is exotic at all. A burger, fish and chips, things that are just so whatever, but just executed to perfection. Oysters on the half shell, like shrimp cocktail, nothing that's blowing anybody's mind, except for every time it blows my fucking mind. And then I can drink an amazing bottle of champagne, have it served by a knowledgeable sommelier with a warm service staff. I crave going to that restaurant, and I don't think that's exotic, and it excites me. And maybe that's just because I'm an old man. I wish there was more restaurants across the country that gave me the same feeling that Red Hook Tavern does, and there's nothing exotic about that restaurant.
Well, I think that there's just a different, and this is also just being at a stage in your career as a chef where like you get early on, you're learning, and then when you start doing this, you need to wow people, and you're trying to do whatever you can to like create like the wow factor. And then over time, you realize you start to like, one, maybe it's you start to earn the trust, but then you also start to realize that like doing something really well consistently is way more important than doing one thing incredibly well once and then, not being able to repeat it.
Incredible.
And part of that's a maturity thing, but it is way harder. I was having this conversation, I don't remember with who, but like, it's much harder to serve somebody. And I know this because of Bark hot dogs. It's like, it is so much harder to make a BLT sandwich or a hot dog and execute it exceptionally well. Because one, there's no garnishes, there's like, there's nothing around it. There's already an expectation of what it is. There's no like, you go to a restaurant, Noma, but Noma's incredible, obviously, but like, you have no idea what to expect and you have nothing to compare it to. You get a BLT, you know exactly what to compare it to. And a BLT or a burger or a shrimp cocktail, if it's a BLT, what bread? How thick? How well did you toast it?
Mm-hmm.
Which bacon? How thick?
What type of mayo, baby?
What type of mayo? Like, what kind of lettuce? How did you cut the lettuce? How much lettuce? How much tomato? How thick did you cut tomato? Is it a good tomato? Is it ripe? Is it overripe? Is it underripe? All those things are really fucking hard, and it's a BLT. And more importantly, everybody knows what a BLT is, so you can't hide behind it.
Sure.
And you can only charge so much for it. To me, that stuff is way harder.
It's so much harder.
The lemongrass poached, because there's not really you don't have anything to compare it to. And if you do that really well, like, Red Hook Tavern, right? Where like everything, shrimp cocktail it's hard. You have to cook it perfectly. You have to cool at the right temp, and you have to have the right texture. You have to clean off all the veins. You have to like have just enough tail that like all those things that you take for granted. The cocktail sauce has to be really good. You have to have it cold enough, but not too cold, and all that stuff matters. And it's hard, and it's harder because you can compare it to 100 other times that you've had it.
Sure.
And if you layer on, do they actually have really good service? Do they think about you when you went to like sip that wine and it's almost done? Oh, they're already back with another. That's really hard, and way harder than the thing that you don't have it to compare it to.
Yeah. And when that hits, I get really excited. But that
Me
gives me two really good questions. What's your mayo of choice, gentlemen?
So actually, it depends. I like Hellman's. I like, I kind of go back and forth, but well, it depends on what I'm making, right? So like, it depends on the kind of thing
You
I'm
have
making.
different mayos in your cupboard.
Yeah, well, but so let me finish. I was down in Virginia, and I actually had never had this mayo, which I'll tell you, which you're probably like, wait, you never had? But there was a bunch of it in the store, and I bought a bunch. A friend of ours up here also loves it, Duke's mayo. And
The mayo of the
it's
South.
really, really fucking good.
It's
And so
very
now I have
fun.
like 4 bottles of Duke's, and I use it for everything. But I will say, like, I like Hellman's if I'm making like a Dijonnaise. I like Koopy if I'm just gonna put mayo on a sandwich because it's really, it's easy. But now I do that with Duke's because they have the spreadable ones. So that they're kind of like, I like.
What do you do, Mike?
In terms of mayo,
Yeah, what's your mayo in the cupboard?
it's definitely Hellman's. Hellman's is in the fridge,
Yeah.
right next to a bottle of Koopy. Yeah, I always learned to say Q-Pie.
It's a controversial topic here in the South because this is Duke's country. And as a non-Southern boy that's now faking I'm Southern, you got to know who fucks with what mayo. The second part of that question, Sharky, is, and maybe I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but Marco Piero White or that cookbook, White Heat, I think it was. What is the current version of that? Is there a publication, whether it's a hardback book or it could be online? It could be on Instagram or some other. Is there something out there where?
What year was White Heat? What year was White Heat?
What year did it come out?
Yeah, it's not my world.
I mean, I vividly remember when the French Laundry Cookbook came out.
1990.
And
That came out in
1990. Yeah.
And what year was Cook's Confidential? Because that really,
Kitchen
like
Confidential
that.
was probably 97.
Okay. So it's been
I
a
think
while.
French Laundry probably had the biggest impact of like American cooking, the French Laundry Cookbook.
Sure,
Like I
but
sure everybody was.
What's that
Today, I don't know. There's so many.
Because the French Laundry Cookbook probably came out in the early 2000s, mid. So between
It came out in 99.
Yeah, so the 3 books we came out in the 90s. There's 25 years since those 3 publications. What's happened? And I don't even care about the first 20. In the past 5 years, maybe just before COVID to today, what's the Bible that's inspiring kids to throw on their whites and risk
I don't think
70 work weeks and death to cook a good meal? Whoa.
I don't know if there is a
I don't think there
comparable
is.
one. It's because there's
That's crazy.
But there's all new media too. Like books used to be
I
the
think
way.
Jeremy, what's his name from Jeremy Fox? I think that book has resonated for people, but I don't know if there is one that's like recently that's like comparable to White Heat.
I think the
or
industry
French Laundry.
would be better off if we had the type of contributions. And again, they probably exist. I'm not claiming they don't. I'm not a chef. It's not my wheelhouse. It was a question I was posing to you guys. So, if this is well watched, maybe we'll get some feedback of people that say, hey, fuck you, buddy. You don't know shit about shit. It's this and this and this. And my guess is that it's likely online and not an actual hardback book like it used to be. And that's fine. I just don't know who's driving that drive for a young cook to want to keep going like there used to be. And I think that's an important designation of what I'm viewing as some of the vulnerability of our industry.
Do you guys follow Christian Petroni?
I do now.
No.
He's an incredible storyteller. He's like Bronx Italian from Paisano. His I think he's first generation. He's got an incredible way of like talking about and handling food and just telling amazing stories. I wouldn't be shocked if like that's the type of, for lack of a better term, influencer that is, actually inspiring kids from a younger generation to start to really fall in love with food. But I don't know. I think it's people who are online.
Well,
It's not.
there's just not as many. I mean, there was not as many cookbooks then as there are now.
Yeah.
So I think that's that's part of it. But
No,
I do
that's a good
remember a
point.
lot of a lot more. I mean, my bookshelf, I guess it's downstairs now. It's most of them are 10 to 20 years old at least.
Yeah.
I remember vividly, like when the Robichon season book came out. I remember when French Laundry came out. One book I really love more because it's there's some great stuff in there, but it's also beautiful. Is Albeit Cachon, Martin McCard's book was just gorgeous. I don't think that one gets enough love, but I don't know. I bet if I had to like guess, I would say Jeremy Fox's books probably do pretty well. I think Samin's book probably does really well, but I don't know if that's for chefs. For chefs, I don't think that's certainly not one. So for chefs, I don't really know. They probably still use the.
Be a good question for Evan Sung. He probably has a good answer.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll know like what the impact for. Yeah, actually, he would. Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, we'll ask him.
Absolutely.
That's a good.
At least which ones are selling and being circulated amongst the cool kids.
That's true.
He's had his finger on that pulse more than anybody I know.
Yeah, I bet the Noma
he eats out
cookbook
more
as
than
well.
all three of us combined.
Yes, he does. He is a professional eater-outer. Context.
I
context.
love
See?
that you just dropped that.
He eats out so well, and I've never met anybody that eats out as well as him. He's a good eater-outer.
And quantity.
He's a great eater-outer, really.
So much.
And he just continues to eat out.
Yeah.
He eats out in like all over the place. He doesn't care where it is.
All over the world.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He'll eat out anywhere. And that's what I appreciate about him.
Me too.
Mostly. Context. See, this is what I mean. I want to, just because I have you here, Matt, I want to ask, can you just tell me 3 wines I should buy for Christmas?
Like what?
This is actually just selfishly, I want to know.
Where you
but
live
then
or
everybody, no, because people can all buy wine from you and you'll tell us how, but tell me what I should buy. If I want to have a killer Christmas.
I mean, that's like, what should I cook? What should I cook if I have?
Yeah, but just what comes to mind. You sent me 3 bottles last time, and I gave you very vague. We can stick to Northern Italian if you want, or
I drink.
No, because you sent me Burgundy as well. So
tonight I'm gonna head into the bar now. It's Friday night. Should be busy. We do a by the glass promo every Friday, and we have Bartolo Mascarello, who's the king of Barolo, but it's his Longue Nebbiolo. So it's declassified, and I've never tasted the wine, and I can't wait to get in there and taste it. It's fairly inexpensive by Barolo standards, but apparently the best Longue Nebbiolo on the market. I can't wait to taste that wine. And that's pretty inexpensive. I'm not the biggest Nebbiolo drinker on the planet. I do that with like ribeyes or a New York strip, which I do cook pretty frequently, but I drink a lot more white wine and champagne. Just my wife kind of prefers that. It's hot here a lot. So white Burgundy, I just shipped Mike some Rouleau, which is one of the most famous producers of Burgundy, but I got a few bottles that aren't like thousands of dollars and shared them with people that have been helpful to me. I love white Burgundy, Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley. I always fuck with, I have Domaine Collier. I just brought a case upstairs, 2021 just came out, and those are pretty inexpensive, all things considered, and their wines are just toe-curlingly delicious. High acid, crunchy, great with a wider range of food, but like champagne, man. It's holidays. Champagne goes with the stuff that's laying around on the table. It goes with the first course. It goes with the second course. 3 weeks ago, I made a ribeye. Well, again, I do it probably every other week for my wife, and we drank a bottle of champagne with the steak, and she was like, fuck, this is incredible how well the bubbles go with the red meat. And I would have never guessed that would go so well, but it's like bubbles and acid with like a fatty beef, like they're made for each other. So there's a lot of answers, but I think champagne and Chenin, white Burgundy. I drink a lot of Syrah. I'm drinking red from the Northern Rhone. Domaine Graillot is something I put in his box. That's
okay. Well, I got some orders. Now I at least have an order for you. I always remember Chenin.
I could listen to Matt talk about wine.
I know.
It's well priced and.
I just want you to keep going.
delicious.
Jesus. Yeah.
What's that?
The Domaine Graillot that I put in his box, it's Crozes Hermitage from the Rhone Valley. Two brothers, Antoine and Maxime, that took over for their father, who was a good friend of mine, passed away. They're like 2 of my really good friends. But like for the price, I think it's maybe, I don't know, depending on where you're at, 40 to 50 retail, and the wines drink it's just such a good value. And again, not everybody out there wants to go that high, but I'm sure a lot of restaurant people, that's not that crazy. It's not hundreds, and the wines just over deliver, and they're just great examples of Syrah and Northern Rhone. So I would highly suggest some Graio.
Okay.
Always.
I got it. I got an order coming.
I got a box waiting with your name on it.
Oh, I can't wait.
We just need our friends at FedEx to do a little maneuvering for us, and
Oh yeah,
it'll be Hanukkah at Sharky's in no time.
I think I just gave you the wrong address last time. That Trebillon was so like insane.
So good.
That was so good. I know we were like, it was an amazing place that we were drinking at, but that was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Also the tippling stuff is like, that was great because you said
for what
3
it
bottles
is,
of that.
Yeah, it's great. But to Trebillon 14, so it's got whatever that is, 11 years on it. It's ready.
Yeah.
Like in a good place. We drank one the week before you opened yours at the bar because I was trying to show people like the real one versus ours, and we were enamored with it too. I was like, dang, I shouldn't have given one of these to Sharky. They're so good. Could have kept it for myself. Not a problem. All I do is collect more and more wine, and it stacks up, and one day I'm going to have a lot of wine and no wife.
Yeah, they just need to do more half bottles. It's hard to,
I know, you got to drink the whole thing, brother. I don't believe in half bottles.
I can only drink two glasses.
Well, we'll work on that.
Yeah. Well, I think this was good. And we definitely need to keep doing this. I have like 10 more roads to go down. One, I think that Mike, I want to talk to you about next time, which is focus, first breath. I can't wrap my head around how you do so many different businesses. It's like, I literally just don't understand how you do it. So I want to talk about that. Both we can talk about is from the craft perspective and then just like businesses, because I literally don't know how you fucking do that. And it pisses me off. All right, guys. Thank you.